Yeah, he is such a smart guy, and I think you hear about it a lot with various NFL players trying to build something off the field. Like they're way more than just a football player. Like that's just one part of all these guys on the field. Like for example, like Tyler Lockett, how he's a real estate agent too, and Bobby seems to know everything about business. But yeah, DK's he's growing himself in so many industries, which is so cool to see. Like financial industry, fashion, acting, directing, writing. You name it, he's like songwriting, singing, he does everything, and it's so cool to see that. And it's that part, I guess, is really inspirational too, because sometimes I feel like I'm just like the videographer, the photographer, and I'm kind of in that box. But it makes you realize that you can do so much more in fields that are so vastly different from I guess your main thing.
Welcome to the Raw Facts podcast. I'm your host and producer, Ben Arthur, joined by a very talented individual. For you Seahawks fans in particular, you'll see a lot of his content revolving around DK Metcalf. He is Niko Carste. He produces a lot of cool social content, photography, videography around the NFL and also the University of Washington football team. He's most known for being the creative director and personal photographer for Seahawks star receiver DK Metcalf. Niko, thank you so much for joining the show. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on. So let's kind of start at the beginning, right? Like how did this whole content creation, photography, cinematography thing get going? What was maybe the inspiration behind doing what you do?
So everything started back in high school. We had a pretty good football team at the time, and the football team is still good. But
What high school?
it was Eastlake High School in
Okay.
Sammamish, Washington. Yeah, and there were these two older guys, Ben and Eli. They were seniors when I was a freshman, and I always saw these two dudes running around with cameras, and they were known as Film Squad throughout high school. And I always just thought they were the coolest dudes. And like I remember way back in the day, like they would like my post, and I would be like, "Mom, Dad, like Ben liked my post." It was pretty funny, but anyway, so they would film the football team a lot, and just like various school events and whatnot. And I was like, I love cameras. I love like playing around with GoPros and stuff like that. I feel like I could totally do that for the high school one day and kind of fill in their shoes. And so they graduated obviously, and then my time came along, and it was kind of through like the school leadership program where the leadership teacher Don Bartel was also the head football coach. So then I started working for the football team, and then the football team would like hire me out to do like a season documentary and whatnot. And then yeah, I mean, just through football, like the couple good players on the team would start to bring me out to their own private workouts, as you know. And then the good high school guys are connected with some good college guys, and then college guys are connected with NFL guys. So it was totally just like a connections business, as you know, and you meet one person, and that leads to the next. But yeah, it was through high school.
Okay.
Football.
And so kind of getting your connection with DK in particular, I saw the like the TV segment that King
Mhm.
5 in Seattle, the NBC affiliate out there, did on you, and it started kind of, as you're saying, kind of like a private workout. What do you remember about
Yeah.
kind of that shoot you did where you met him, and how did maybe you get invited to this?
Yeah. So let's see here. This is a while ago. So I remember there was a trainer in the area, and he had invited me out to a workout, and then DK was also going to be there. And so obviously I came to the workout, and I didn't even know that he was going to be there, but he was there, and I was like, oh, damn, it's DK, right? Because at the time, I mean, I'm a junior in high school. So, and DK is
Oh,
like the new star of the Seahawks. So I'm like, oh hell yeah, like that's that's pretty sweet. It was kind of unexpected, and then, but I just kept it really professional, and I shook his hand, introduced myself, and then didn't say another word to him throughout the workout, and let him do his thing. But then I just sent him a couple photos on Instagram right after, and to my surprise, he responded within like 2 minutes. And I was like, that's crazy. Definitely didn't expect that. But anyways, he loved the photos. And then, but video is like my main thing. And then, so we talked about doing a video together, and then we filmed a few more times for video. He absolutely loved the video. And then this is all during COVID, because
Okay.
I feel like training camp was delayed, or players weren't allowed in the facility for OTAs or whatnot. So that was when they were just doing a lot more like off-field private workouts. And he just kept on texting me to come back to his workouts and keep on filming. And he absolutely loved the videos. And then, then a bit later, it was in the spring of, I want to say 2020. It was my senior year at that point, and school was still online, and it was high school, and we had all gone into college already. So school wasn't necessarily the most like real thing, if you will, at the time. And so he texted me and he was like, want to come live with me out in Arizona? And I pitched that to my mom, and she was like, oh, hell no, like there's no shot. Like, I don't know, like I'm not gonna go let you live with some football player down in Arizona. And finally, it took a lot of convincing. He talked to my family, and pretty instantly, like my family just fell in love with him, and thought he was the nicest, coolest dude, and just have all the love in the world for him.
Yeah, so in that same TV segment I was watching, so I guess he took your mom out to dinner. Was that kind of like
Yeah.
the bow tie on it all?
Not necessarily, because at that point I was already down in Arizona, but
Got it.
it was funny because well, so they had already like known each other at that point, just from like calling, and DK was like, I'll treat him like a brother and stuff like that. But it was just so funny because she was staying at like a Hilton Garden Inn or something. Like it's like a modest hotel, if you will. And then just here DK and I come up and pick her up in a Lamborghini.
Oh,
and
shoot.
and she was like, oh my goodness. But then, yeah, we went out to dinner, and she just loved him, and they connected, and just had a great night. And yeah, they were close from then.
So, okay, so let me make sure I have the timeline right. So this first private workout where you meet him, was this in what, summer of 2019?
2019. Yeah.
Okay. So from that time to spring 2020, he's asking you to live with him in Arizona, like for an off
It
season.
was it was no, because it was after the season had after the 2019 season had ended. I made some
Okay.
recap videos and whatnot for him, and I felt like kind of the cherry on top. And that's
Okay.
what happened. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And so tell me about kind of like how that relationship, right? Because you're obviously working with him, working for him, or however that goes. But clearly, for him to ask you to live with him, like to spend time with him at that capacity, you guys had to have become close. What can you maybe say about like his personality that you maybe would have never guessed? I mean, you're living with him, right? So like, what did you maybe learn about him that you thought was cool?
He's a creature of habit. He does the same thing every day. He works incredibly hard. I mean, I'm sure everyone can tell. But yeah, no, he's the epitome of consistency, and he's a really funny dude. Like we just are laughing our butts off all the time together, and just have a really great time. But he's a real person, and I think people should know that. I remember one of the first days that I was with him, like he was fixing the toilet because the toilet wasn't working. So he's like taking the toilet apart and putting his hands in there and trying to figure it all out. Okay, it wasn't that bad, but
Yeah.
but like he's a person just like you and I, and yeah.
Yeah, I think that's just a really important message. I think just in general, right? Because of how we, with sports fandom and the whole fantasy element of it, like I feel like people
Yeah.
just kind of look at
Yeah.
and being kind of on the just doing what you do and your proximity to athletes, just how they're viewed and just I don't know. That's a whole nother topic, but it's really cool that you've gotten to know him and gotten to see that side of DK. And so Niko, just your role, right? Your personal photographer for DK, his creative director. What exactly does that mean? Like, what is your day to day looking like with him?
Yeah, it's hard because I mean I'm in school, so that takes up a huge chunk of time, and so it obviously varies a lot, like off season to season. But pretty much in the season, it's a lot of stocking up on footage for the future that we'll look back on in 10, 15 years and hopefully do something really cool with. So a lot of going through that footage, organizing it, knowing what I have, and then I try to also take as many photos as I can for social media, and then just kind of help curate posts, deliver photos, things like that, and then just random hype recap, edit videos, your kind of normal social media projects. But yeah, I'll go in spurts like where I'll stay with him for a bit of time and then go back home and then stay with him for a bit of time and then so yeah, making videos from those times and yeah.
And you said you're kind of stockpiling stuff for like 10,
Mhm.
15 years down the line. So is it kind of like the vision to like make like some kind of documentary or like what's kind of was that kind of like DK's task for you, like helping, me like
Yeah.
create
Yeah, I
this?
mean DK is the he's the director for sure, the producer, but you'll see. Everyone will see.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. First of all, I look forward to seeing that down the line. But in what ways does he maybe kind of empower you to kind of execute on your creative juices, right? Because obviously he's brought you on to do this for him, but it seems like he's given you the space to kind of do your own thing in terms of what you're capturing of him in all facets of his life. So how does he maybe kind of like have his hands off and just kind of let you do what you do because you're good at it?
Yeah, that part's really cool and I love him for it. He just gives me all the trust in the world and room to do whatever I want. He's never looking over my shoulder or doing anything like that. But he's sort of into like the directing role as well as being an actor. Like he knows he's a writer. He knows his way around kind of the industry. So
Mhm.
we have the same eye for a lot of things. Like we can talk about like color science and know about which colors evict a certain tone or think cool things like that. Like he's a really knowledgeable dude in that area.
Mm.
Um, so I mean, yeah, he's always giving me the space, but he also like he knows a lot about random filmmaking things too, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, kind of going off of that, Niko. What can you maybe say about like what his business acumen is
Right.
is like from a marketing social media standpoint? Because the fact that he's even thinking, okay, we can produce this thing for 15 years down the line is like an asset. Like you don't hear a lot of guys talk like that, and bringing you on and helping him execute that vision. What can you maybe say about like how his brain how his brain is wired and how he thinks?
There's a cattail.
Oh, you're good.
Uh, say that last part again.
Yeah, just the fact that like his business acumen, right? Like what can you say about just the fact that he's even thinking 10,
Right.
15 years down the line with the content that is being produced in the present? What does that maybe say about how his mind is working?
Yeah, he is such a smart guy, and I think you hear about it a lot with various NFL players trying to build something off the field. Like they're way more than just a football player. Like that's just one part of all these guys on the field. Like for example, like Tyler Lockett, how he's a real estate agent too, and Bobby seems to know everything about business. But yeah, DK's he's growing himself in so many industries, which is so cool to see. Like financial industry, fashion, acting, directing, writing, you name it. He's like songwriting, singing. He does everything, and it's so cool to see that. And it's that part I guess is really inspirational too, because sometimes I feel like I'm just like the videographer, the photographer, and I'm kind of in that box. But it makes you realize that you can do so much more in fields that are so vastly different from I guess your main thing.
Mhm.
Um, that's pretty inspirational, and credit to him, because it's like that. It takes a lot of time to do all these things, and like he puts in the work, and he learns how to do new things, and he goes to acting class and cool things
He
like
goes
that.
to acting classes?
Yeah, he's
Oh, wow.
taken acting classes before.
Okay.
I
Wow.
think he's definitely talked about that. Some places,
Okay.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. And Niko, like for you, like I want to hear more about like your creative process, right? So like when you know you're gonna be with DK for the day or for a game, like what is kind of your thought process? Like how are you going into the day? Like what different lenses do you have? Like how does all that like work from like your perspective in
Yeah,
making something come to life?
yeah. I would say it's tough. It's definitely hard because like a football game, so many things are going on, but at the end of the day, it's the same pregame routine every single time. He's been doing the same thing forever, and or so. I mean, there's only so many ways to shoot a pregame, but it's always about
Yeah.
trying to find new ways to shoot it, just different, you know, compositional things, and new tunnels are always fun to experiment with, and different lighting and stuff like that. But I mean, in terms of lenses and whatnot, it's not like a football game is really like on a set. It's so run and gun, and everything happens so fast. So you kind of just got to be ready for everything. And
Yeah.
you know, security might tell you to you can't be here, you can't be there. So you're
Wow.
always bouncing around, and you know, there's always a billion other photographers too that might get in your way, and whatnot. So I think that's tough to say. You just got to be super adaptable and trying to make everything look as good as you can for what you have.
So when you do have that content, whatever it is, like what does that maybe editing process look like for you? I mean, obviously maybe you're stockpiling stuff for the documentary coming out, but like you're also thinking like for social, like for maybe for next week, for that day, the hype videos you create. How does maybe that editing process and your thought
Yeah,
process going through that?
that part's tough because like I've talked about this with him, where it's like you would shoot a documentary different than you would shoot a social media hype video. Again, I don't love that word, but like you shoot those in totally different ways. But with my footage, it's going to need to be used for both at some point. So it's hard to kind of capture both, but I mean, I just do my best.
Yeah. No, I feel that. And Niko, I know you also you do work with what UW
Mhm.
football,
Yeah.
and do you do stuff for the NFL at large too?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's yeah. So there's essentially three jobs going on. So I work for the
Yeah.
NFL, UW football, and then DK. And so I guess for the NFL is technically under, or for home games is technically work for the NFL. Then away games are technically work for DK, but these things kind of overlap a little bit. And then the last one is just UW football, and that kind of just fills in the rest of my time, which whatever time I still have after school and stuff. But that's the same sort of thing. But it's cool seeing or working internally for a team, right, versus the NFL, where you're not working just for the team. So you see a lot more of what goes on in that locker room. And obviously what UW is building is pretty special right now.
Mhm.
So it's been really fun to see that and document all that. And then um, in the same way, just making connections with those players. And yeah, I love that work too.
So how do you balance all that, right? Like
Yeah.
you're a junior at
Mhm.
UW, right? So like you're going to classes, you're doing stuff with DK, you're doing stuff with the NFL, you're doing stuff with UW football. Like how like how exactly does that work? Like in terms of scheduling, in terms of balance, and whatnot.
Yeah. I think we all have more time than we think we do. Like I think a lot of the people who say like I have no time to do this are also the ones with the highest screen time numbers.
Oh,
Um,
that's facts, man.
yeah. Um, I mean, like if you really like to or love to do something, then you'll find the time to do it. Um, Now that's not to say I would take on more work even if I loved it, but yeah, I mean, classes. really, I mean, there's one or two a day at most in college now. So you get through those classes, you do your homework, and then um, most of the in the week stuff is stuff for UW, and then like editing random things throughout the week for DK. And then obviously the weekends are just madness because a lot of the times it'll be like home game for the Huskies or something, and then like I'll leave and fly out to wherever the Seahawks play the next day. Or sometimes like the Huskies will be away and then the Seahawks will be home, and it's just this crazy jubilation of trying to plan the logistics of trying to be everywhere at once. But that's the fun in it. I mean, I'm young, I can take it. The traveling, the late nights and whatnot, and it just feels so rewarding. Like that was a good weekend, shooting a couple games around the country. It's really fun. I'll never take it for granted, obviously.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Niko, like you're probably the youngest person I know doing what you do, like around the NFL in terms of like all the content creation and the photography and the videography, like doing it at a professional level. Like you're probably the youngest person I know. Like what maybe advice would you give to people kind of like looking to do what you're doing now? Just in terms of not only breaking in, but like you've talked a lot about the relationships and how that kind of compounds off of itself. Like maybe along those lines, could you maybe say about like what it takes, and for those who kind of look up to you?
Yeah, that's crazy to me too, because like there's so many people I look up to, and I genuinely like it's hard to like give advice when it feels like I am still young and haven't really accomplished much. But there's obviously the cliches of advice to give, but some key ones that come to mind are don't ask for things. I mean, obviously, when you can, how do I say this? It's not too hard to get in like a football player's DMs nowadays and do some work for them in the off season and whatnot. But it's when you start asking for things and being too obvious with your posting and social media, a lot of bragging. That's really what I don't love. So just keeping it like more monotone and being like, this is the work I do and I love it, and you don't got to push it out at every second that this is me. I'm filming for all these players right now. Like that's your work. That's your job. Like you can go do it in silent too. That's a big one. But I mean, just love what you do. Honestly, is what comes to mind.
You figured out how to do a lot of the stuff you do through like YouTube or something,
Yeah.
right? Like, so how did that process go of like educating yourself?
Dude, I love that part of it. Like every single night, still to this day, like before I go to bed, I like listening to something when I go to sleep. So I'll always be listening to just random YouTubers talk about camera gear, composition, or techniques or something. And even if I fall asleep during it, which I always do, I just always love listening to something and trying to learn new things. But yeah, no, I learned like quite literally everything off YouTube and just practicing it and doing it yourself and putting yourself in uncomfortable positions where you don't think you can do something and kind of pushing through it is a big one. Because I mean, a huge thing like for younger creatives out there is like you'll get texts and calls to do shoots and stuff like that, and sometimes you might not want to do it because you're like, oh, what if I mess up? I don't want to embarrass myself or something like that, or I don't have the right gear, or I'm not good enough, all these things. But I guess it's a cliche again, but like you got to just put yourself in those positions because then you'll be more equipped to handle it the next time at a better level.
For sure. Yeah, I can totally like relate to you on like kind of the education part, listening to stuff. Because when first thing I do actually when I wake up is I'm listening to something that kind of helped me, and
Mm-hmm.
just being an interviewer, being a
Right.
journalist, learning how to like draw cool stories out of people and
Yeah.
relating to them and establishing a comfort level. Like I'm listening to the best of the best, like
Mhm.
explain how they do it, or a great interview. And so I can really feel you on like just going on YouTube and like diving into what you're passionate about, and like picking up bits and pieces like every
Yeah.
day or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's so
Yeah.
important to do.
And that's definitely not to like trash or anything on like going to film school or
Yeah.
learning it in a more like, I guess like normal environment. But like, I would love to go to film school someday if that ever presented itself. I don't know if I would, but like, I think there's stuff you can learn all over, but you can definitely learn it at home and just practice it yourself.
Kind of going off of the whole film school thing, I wanted to ask you, Niko, like what's your ultimate vision? Like what's your goal? Is it to go to film school, or what's kind of like your vision for what you're doing?
I honestly, it's like too early to know what I want to do in life. I'm studying business in school, so really nothing at all to do with creative work or cinematography or anything like that. But I just am trying to open as many doors as possible. And I mean, I love sports. I don't know. I wouldn't say I love business, but it's something great to have. But I could definitely see myself working in sports management someday, sports marketing, agent work could be really cool. But that's not to say that I wouldn't continue what I'm doing. I just, it's too early to say that, that I know what I want to do with my life.
Yeah, no, for sure. But you're on the right track. I mean, it's, being so young. I mean, it's just a matter of like trying different things, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah. So I feel you, Niko. Well, everyone listening, please go check out like Niko's content. Like he's honestly one of the best at what he does. Like I'm just so captivated by like his photos and the videos he produces. Niko, where can like people like find your work? Just in terms of social media, like a website, like where can like people who want to learn more about what you're doing, like where can they find that?
Yeah, just Instagram at Niko Carste is pretty much where I don't post a ton, like I said earlier, but everything is on there. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Niko, well, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Raw Facts podcast. Appreciate you guys for rocking with me. You can subscribe to the show on YouTube at the Raw Facts podcast. I'm on Instagram and X as well. Until next week, I will see you guys soon.
All right. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Niko.